His hands were already under my shirt when I hit the dryer behind me. The hum vibrated up my spine. The scent of fabric softener thick in the air like clean lies. He didn't ask. He just moved closer. The mouth on my collarbone, breath dragging, warmth across the skin. I hadn't let anyone touch like this in years. The overhead bulb flickered low yellow, exposing. I kept one hand behind me, gripping the edge of the folding table like it could anchor me to the version of myself I was trying to remember. His weight pressed into my hips, slow at first, then deep. I gasped. Every inch filled something in me. I hadn't named it until it was already happening. My knee knocked the open detergent bottle. It rocked but didn't fall. I couldn't move to fix it. I could barely breathe. His hand was on my lower back guiding. The dryer rattled again, and I swallowed a sound that wasn't pain. Not really. It stung, but I didn't stop him. I leaned back harder. I'd gone years without being touched. And then I let this happen. I'm 39, married, tired in a way you can't explain without sounding ungrateful. You know the type, the kind of exhaustion that creeps into your bones. Not from work, not from parenting, but from never being looked at the same way twice. He's 31, not a stranger. That would have made more sense. He was my husband's coworker. Came over to help patch drywall after the leak. Came back to help install shelves in the laundry. Came again just to say hi. I knew what I was doing when I started wearing that fitted shirt. The one that clings when I reach up. I told myself it was hot that day. It wasn't. I used to think loneliness was silent, but it's not. It has a heartbeat and it pounds in your ears when someone finally puts their hand on your lower back and doesn't pull it away. What would you do if the comfort you needed came from the one person you were never supposed to feel that way about? Because it wasn't sudden. It was slow. A quiet accumulation of glances. His hand brushing mine when he handed me a screwdriver. The way he looked at me. Not like I was his buddy's wife, like I was a secret he wanted to keep. That first time wasn't planned. We didn't kiss. We didn't even speak. We just stood too close. I turned around too fast, bumped into him, and I didn't step back. There's a moment right before something happens where you could still stop it. I didn't. I let him press into me. Let him slide his hand down the back of my jeans like he'd done it before. I let the air thicken around us. The walls go quiet. The lines blur. And in that laundry room under a flickering bulb and the steady hum of a machine that never questioned me, I did the one thing I swore I never would. I let go. If you've ever reached for comfort in the wrong place, not because you meant to, but because you didn't know where else to go, this story may feel familiar. Like and subscribe. Staying through helps these stories reach the people who quietly need them. Let's begin. The morning after, I folded towels like nothing had happened. I stood at the same folding table, the one he had pressed me into just hours earlier, and smoothed each edge as if it would erase the way my body still ached. My husband was in the living room, laughing at some YouTube video, his voice rising in that oblivious, trusting way that made my stomach tighten. I wasn't supposed to feel guilty, not because what happened wasn't wrong, but because it didn't feel like cheating. It felt like responding to years of silence, of absence, of being treated like a fixture instead of a woman. He had barely touched me in months, not in anger, not in resentment, just in slow forgetting. That's the thing about marriage. When it starts dying, it doesn't scream. It just goes quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you forget you ever had a voice. I met Ethan at a company cookout 2 years ago. He was younger, but not boyish. The kind of man who had grown into his confidence, a little cocky, but more observant than he let on. He was always the one offering to help, the one staying after. Everyone else had gone to clean up, to carry boxes, to fix things nobody asked him to fix. He wasn't flirtatious, not openly, but he looked at me like I wasn't invisible. And that alone was dangerous. He started coming around more when my husband tore his rotator cuff. Said he'd help with the heavy lifting. I offered him iced tea on hot days, and he took it with a thank you that always lingered. He didn't stare. He scanned like he was learning me, and I let him. There was one day I remember clearly before anything ever happened. I was in the garage struggling to lift a box of old Christmas decorations. He walked in without knocking, took it from me without asking. Our hands brushed. Nothing dramatic, but my chest stayed tight for the next hour. That's how it started. Not with lust, with attention. You don't realize how touch-starved you are until someone grazes your shoulder, and it makes your eyes sting. I told myself I was imagining it. The pauses in conversation, the way he waited until we were alone to make jokes that weren't quite jokes. But there was one afternoon that changed everything. The washer had stopped mid-cycle, and I called him because my husband was at a conference. He showed up 30 minutes later. No tools, just a grin and a shrug. It's probably nothing, just a loose connection. But he didn't go straight to the machine. He lingered in the doorway, watching me wipe my hands on a dish towel. The silence was thick, tighter than usual, the kind that hangs before something snaps. I should have handed him the instruction manual and walked away. Instead, I offered coffee. He sat on the stool by the counter, and we talked about nothing, the weather, his terrible landlord, my garden that never grew right. But the words weren't the point. The point was, we didn't want the moment to end. And then he reached over, maybe to take the sugar I'd set out, maybe to touch me. I still don't know. But his fingers grazed mine. I didn't flinch. He looked at me for too long, and I didn't look away. I'd always believed I was the type who would never, and suddenly I wasn't so sure. What do you do when someone sees you not as a mother, not as a wife, but as a woman who still wants, still aches, still breathes? You either run or you inch closer. I didn't run. We didn't touch again that day, but something shifted. The silence got louder, the air more electric. He started fixing things that didn't need fixing. I started leaving. The side door unlocked. There's a loneliness that lives in a home like mine. A quiet, polite one. The kind you decorate with throw pillows and candle scents. And when someone new steps into that vacuum, it doesn't take much for the whole foundation to start shaking. I didn't want Ethan. Not at first. I wanted to feel something. And when I finally did, I couldn't pretend it didn't matter. It was a Tuesday when I realized I'd memorized the sound of his footsteps. I was upstairs folding laundry again, and I heard the side door creak open. My husband had taken the truck to the dealership. Ethan had promised to swing by and check the garage door, which had been sticking. Apparently, I didn't need it fixed, but I let him come anyway. I paused in the hallway, clutching a damp bath towel like it was armor. I heard him shut the door softly, the way someone does when they know they don't fully belong. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't call out. I waited and I listened to each footstep as he crossed the tile floor. It wasn't suspense. It was something worse, expectation. My body knew what I was doing before I did. I moved down the stairs. Slow, quiet, like I was stepping into something I couldn't step out of. He was bent over the garage door panel, sleeves pushed up, forearms dusted. In grime. He looked up at me just once and didn't say anything. I handed him a towel. Our fingers brushed again. I think about that moment more than I should. We didn't speak for nearly 5 minutes after that. He fiddled with the screws. I stood leaning against the wall like a woman who hadn't planned for this, but didn't want to leave. I think it's just the track. he said, finally straightening up. Could be warped from the heat. He wiped his forehead, leaving a smudge of grease above his eyebrow. I almost reached out to brush it away, but I didn't. I froze instead, and so did he. The tension was so thick I could hear our breathing. Then movement upstairs. A soft thud from the bedroom. My husband was back. We broke apart, like kids getting caught with cigarettes.